Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Of course, Dr. Amar doesn't need any introduction. Everybody knows him. He has given us quite a few talks, actually, all of varied topics and all very interesting, all eye-opener, something that may not even strike us. And the last one, I think on children's right, was really, really amazing. Of course, because he's always preparing new topics, so I'm always inviting him to come and give more talks. So this week we are going to do on learning, actually, our national emergency, and we have, of course, had a long period where children didn't go to school, and Amma is going to speak on the effect of which. And then we will next week also invite Amma on a Sunday. So without further ado, Amma?
Yeah, thank you very much, Betty, and good afternoon to everybody. I've just posted a link in the chat, and Betty will repost it because Betty, the people who come in late will not see the link. I also will show a QR code later for that link. Okay, and thank you for those who are coming in this afternoon and giving us your afternoon. It's a tough time, Sunday afternoon. I think many people need to crash, and we've had a very tough week plus with all the elections and then all the emotions. I think many of us felt drained waiting for the results, and then all the discussion that was going on. And thankfully, we have a meaningful government put in place. Okay, now is the time to see that that government can perform and to hold them accountable, I think. So Betty's asked me to talk about education. Allow me to share some slides with you as we go along. Okay, so I'm going to talk about our national emergency, our child's learning loss. Basically, this is focused on looking at post-COVID-19 school recovery, which has affected lots of our children in our country. Okay. I'd like to introduce the team that I worked with to produce this. These are the people. There's Lightin there, who works with the NECIC. There's Sri there, who's a lawyer and works with child rights. There's Yunmore down at the bottom there. Try and get a, yes, and a spotlight. Yep, so I've got a spotlight. Okay, all right, got my spotlight. There's Yunmore there, who has worked a long time with United Nations. Phenomenal woman. I think many people in Malaysia don't know her, but she's done a lot for our country. That's Jill Raja, who's from Sarawak, who is a social worker by training, does a lot of work with women's rights. And that's Ong, who has got a master's in education, and she's the co-chair with me. And I'll tell you why we wrote this in a moment. Okay. Again, since new people may be here and not everybody may know me very well, I often show this picture of myself, which was drawn by a child. I have a number of pictures, but I like this particular one. A number of pictures drawn by children, but this guy was I think the most interesting. He drew my long nose very well, and then my hairy arms, which I find very creative. I would never have thought of drawing hairy arms like that, And then my eyelashes, which is a very perceptive child, which I like. So I want to say that I'm speaking on behalf of children. That's who I represent this afternoon. We don't represent Beating Hearts or Ministry of Education, MOH or anybody. I've been working a very long time with disability and working with education to some degree for quite some time as well. And I'd like to give you a realistic opinion about what's the situation and what we can do about it. Okay. Now I've got some documents for you, quite a few documents. Number 8 is the one that you want, this post-COVID recovery. It was written for the National Recovery Council. That QR code will take you there, but also posted a link inside the chat group. And I saw Betty repost it, but she reposted again later for the late coming. But I put a lot of these articles here because they're all education-based and may be interesting to you. For example, we did some work on disability inclusion. I wrote a paper for APEC, Asia Pacific Economic Congress, on the cooperation on education for special needs children. We've got inclusive education experiences of parents, got a future of early intervention services and other stuff like that. The UNICEF core competency is very nice. I'll say a few words about it. Okay, so this is a document that you're looking for today. Everything I say will come from this document. So don't worry about the slides, worry about the document because it's written in detail. It's about 40 pages long. Now, why do you write this document? I wrote this document because Ministry of Finance reached out to us and say, could we please offer an opinion how to rescue our children? Because they were very worried. Because at this time we had National Recovery Council. And so, of course, this document, how do we use it? We presented it to the National Recovery Council, chaired by ministers, where the different DGs are there, I mean, DG of Health, DG of Education, many other DGs were there as well. Sadly, MOE did not think that they had a problem, but we still made it available to everybody. We also shared it on the media so that people in private universities, other people in homeschools elsewhere can also use it, and you can use it as well. So how can you use it? I think that you can work with your local school. If you're a parent, you're an educator, you can work with your local school to make many of these things happen. For example, the Sarawak government has asked me and asked some of the working team to come and present this document and work with them through it to see how they can adopt parts of this document. Now, I'm going to use Slido, and it's anonymous, so you don't worry about your responses as we go along to ask some questions. Again, the QR code will turn up intermittently in case you need to gain access to all those documents. Now, in the document, because it's large, I have a habit of writing an executive summary. So you can see the executive summary also is a couple of pages, but executive summary is in the table. And so that will give you a very quick idea what the area to do and what to do. And it'll give you an index number for a page where to go to find that particular detail that you want. Okay. And I think we need to be very, very aggressive if you want to rescue our children right now. So here's the first question I'd like to ask you from your experience. What percentage of school was lost in 2020 and 2021, in the 2 years of the peak of our pandemic? How much of schooling was lost by our children in Malaysia? Would you just scan this QR code and then just type and choose an answer, and remember to press send. If you don't send, the answer won't go. Could you fish out a handphone and do that right now? Thank you. One person has responded.
Yeah. So it's very simple. Just use your cameras, scan the QR code, and you will get to the question.
Yep.
Yes.
Three people have responded. Let's get some more.
We'd like to know more what you think. Yeah.
Thanks, Betty. Some more, please.
Yeah.
Good.
Very good.
Like to see about 20, 30 responses if we can.
So very simple. Just use your camera, scan the QR code, and then the question will come out. And you just send.
Yeah. Okay. If you're having any difficulty, there's a code down there. I made it very simple, capital C, school 2022. And that's quite easy to.
But I think it's simple enough. Just scan the QR code. It's very interesting. Because
we got 6 people. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but by the way, we have got more Slido questions coming, so it's a good idea to start responding now so you'll become familiar with it.
Yeah.
Any more, please?
Because we have many watching from Facebook.
Yeah, you can respond from Facebook as well.
Facebook is the same. Okay, you just just scan and you will get it.
Remember, this is a different QR code from the earlier one, which the earlier one was a link to files. This is a Slido QR code. Okay, 9 people so far. Generally, all of you are pretty good, I must say. You know, you've chosen the higher percentages rather than the lower percentages.
Yes, that's right.
Know, yeah. So I think I'm going to carry on, but I hope that we can come back to more responses in Slido. All right. So what's the real answer? The answer is 70%. We lost 42 weeks of schooling in those 2 years. So that's 70% of schooling that's lost. And if you look at the Asia Development Bank report midway through that, they said that Malaysia is one of the highest learning loss among Asian developing countries. The only country worse than us is Myanmar, which is not a country to be benchmarked with. Okay, so you see here for the South Asian region, we are the highest. And notice that 3 bars there. The gray is probably the average, the orange the optimistic, and if you take the pessimistic view, we are among the worst in the region. Okay, so we have a crisis with education. We have a lot of learning loss in our children. Okay. Now, in terms of the situation analysis for you, one problem why we had learning loss is 40% of children weren't able to participate online. This is MOE data. MOE did a very large survey to see how many children had access to digital, access to their online classes and things, and they couldn't. Of course, it's worse in the more rural areas, at Sabah especially, and Sarawak. Some children, of course, had screens and they became very bored. Looking at screens so much, they became a bit addicted. In fact, teachers were telling us that children had many tabs open. They were not listening to teacher, but they were doing something else. And this reduced attention time. Some children during this period lost interest. There's a good UNICEF study, and they showed that 20% of inner city kids in the Klang Valley don't want to go back to school during this period. And I think this impact has been all the way up. It's not just preschool, children who couldn't go to kindergarten, not just primary and secondary school, not just university, but postgraduate education for some of you as well who are listening in. So I've got another QR code, another slide over here. Regarding your postgraduate education during these 2 years, were you able to continue with that training, or was partially affected, some delay, significantly affected, major delay, or your training was halted? We just do this again for us, please. Thank you. There are 5 people who responded so far, 6. I'd like
Funny,
to see a few more.
we actually always thought of students as kids, yeah?
Yeah, no, I think all the way up.
Yes,
In fact,
that's right. Now that you put this, that's why you always make me think differently.
Yeah, I think of myself as a student, even though I'm close to 65, because I'm still learning an enormous amount. And actually, I learn a lot from younger people than older people these days. Younger people teach me more. Only 6 people have responded, but we can see from them that they have some delay, and 1/3 of them had major delay. And I know some people's training was completely halted. They couldn't go overseas as part of their training, and they couldn't finish their training. And so some postgraduate courses in medicine, anyway, I know for a medical field, were delayed actually by almost 2 years. Actually, they should have finished, but they could not graduate.
No, a lot of students because I speak to a lot of the students, and those from Russia and Ukraine, that was before the war. They were really affected.
Yeah, agreed. So even our local universities, actually, I suggested in the press a couple of times, just graduate all the year 5 fellows instead of letting them sit there. But universities are universities. Okay, so let's carry on. So this major loss in education impacted some groups worse than others. And those with disabilities, those who are living in poverty, relative poverty as well, that's about 30% of the public, probably 10% living in significant poverty, another 20% relative poverty, they were more severely affected. Those in Sabah, Sarawak, those from indigenous communities, and those who are stateless refugees and detention centers. And these are the ones most disadvantaged compared to others. In terms of what we've been doing to catch up, there's been very limited remedial sessions in the education field. Many children have moved to the next grade unprepared. When you miss a block of knowledge or information that you need, very hard to go to the next next block, especially for science and maths and stuff like that. Some teachers have worked very hard. In fact, I'm very impressed with teachers. Some work very, very hard to support their children, but they haven't received additional support resources that they need. And the impact of schooling and the loss of social interaction, of course, has an enormous impact on the mental health of our children. And that's something that you must tie in with this school loss, because even going back to school right now has not been easy for children. There's concerns with school safety, and their fears that many children have expressed to us about falling behind in their studies. Okay. So other countries recognize this earlier than we did. They've been working on solutions and put into place solutions. But our children have left behind, a segment of our children have been left behind. And I think if we don't do something, our economic competitiveness, long-term social stability can be undermined. So I've got a personal question here right now for you again, one more slide. What has been the impact of COVID-19 on our children's education from your perspective? Either it's your own child or the child that you know or a child that you care for. I have major concerns, children are able to catch up. I have no concerns, I have some concerns. And some people might say, okay, I may consider stopping my child from schooling to maybe pursue some other career, vocational training or stuff like that. Again, there's one person who's very good at responding. Maybe it's Betty.
No, it's not me. I haven't.
Okay, all right. Can anybody else try? 4 people have tried.
Yes.
All 4 have answered. I have major concerns. 5 have answered that.
But I think children are able to catch up quite easily.
Betty, I think it depends on age and the content,
But, I find that a lot of children have mental health issues these days.
Yes, correct. Mental health is a very big issue. But Betty, you may be bright and you may catch up very quickly. I'm usually ahead of my class. I'm reading far ahead into the next year or the year after that. But not all children are doing that. Some need the support. So again, I think there's a number of people that we're going to get to respond, and most have expressed some concern, either children catching up or not able to catch up. Okay, so I want to stress this point, which is probably pivotal. Our children are not uniform. COVID-19 exacerbates inequalities in education. That's something you must recognize. So what does it mean? It means that it's widened the gap between the children with resources and those without. So, for example, Betty's children, if they were young and they're going to school, she probably make sure they got online access. She probably got a tutor in their life, and they carried on with their education, even though they lost their social aspect and there's some mental health challenges. But if you are maybe in rural Sabah or Sarawak, or a poor individual in the Klang Valley, then you lost school completely. What were you doing? You're probably playing, or you're probably helping your parents with their business. You lost your school completely. Now, when you come back to school, the other kids are on par, but you are very far behind. So how does the teacher manage this double system in class right now? Some kids who have kept up and some could not. And can I tell you, at least 40% of our children have fallen behind considerably, not just mildly. Maybe another 20% have fallen back mildly, and maybe only 40% are keeping on track where they are. So if you want to build back in our education system, you need to build back equity. You need to build back better, all right? So I'm going to suggest to you now what we can do. There are a lot of references in the document and hypertext links there. And I'm going to give you the best evidence currently available internationally. And we've adapted this to the Malaysian solution, the team that we're working together. These are key principles, okay? And I talked about this, maybe I'll skip that. I worry also recently about the increased suicide rate among young people. And don't forget that whatever we do will affect our workforce long-term. All right. I want to tell you also that one thing you may not know, that 25% of our kindergartens, preschool shut down during this period, having difficulty starting back, many of them. That's a lot of kindergartens shutting down. So a lot of preschool disruption to children. And if we don't build back, even in the preschool, go downstream and build back, then, children are going to be affected when they come into standard 1, standard 2 for many years to come, not just right now. Okay. I want to say, as we build back and we think about principles, no one size can fit everything, and we need to adapt to the local context and culture and resources. And we must identify schools that require additional support and push for them to get more support. I think that MOE should enlist help from parents and civil society, because you cannot do this alone. And it's not just making sure every child is caught up. We also look at bigger things: inclusion, academic achievements, a sense of developing confidence and a life worth and life skills. Okay, and don't forget teachers. My heart's for teachers. They need additional resources. Now, we've suggested what data sets are required right now.
Can I just ask you, sorry, can I stop you here and ask you, do you see parents, their thinking or how they see education for their children changing in this period of time? For example, a lot of parents used to think that education is, of utmost importance, but because of this, is there a shift in that idea?
I think some who are poorer have abandoned education because they felt that it's not worth it. We are struggling with basic needs, so children should come into the workforce with them. So they're doing their own business and stuff like that, Also, I must recognize for the poor, childcare has also been lost for many of them. It's not just kindergartens that closed down; they have lost all their cheap childcare. Those who are childcare running on a shoestring budget, and that's have shut down as well. So it's hard to send your child to school, and nobody can look at them after school as well. So you're right there. So we need some data, and I'll talk a bit of some of the data along the way, but this is in the document in terms of what the data the government should present so that we have a situation analysis of our situation. And it must be disaggregated by different student groups as well. Now, these are the 12 major trusts that we're suggesting to people. And let me just go ahead straight and go and jump into all of them one by one with you. The first is we need some rapid assessments. We need to personalize this so that we understand individual situations. So we need a simple tool. We need to reduce the burden that teachers are facing, because we can't add extra work to teachers' workload. And we need to partner with professionals. Now, I've got a summary slide here, but I'm going to use the detailed slides for you. So I'll skip that one. And so we need a rapid, simple tool. Assess not just education, but mental health and social family circumstances, poverty situation as well. So we can prioritize the child. And we can prioritize schools. And I think we need to enlist professionals to help us. So we have put in a simple tool into the appendix, but we think this has to be refined with MOE and other educationalists to get a good, simple one-page, I'm a one-page person, one-page tool is what we will need. And should be a 6 months reassessment. So children who are moving forward, fine. Those who are not, we may put more time in. And we need to look at all the data that parents, teachers are required to put in. Teachers are very burdened by data right now. We mustn't add to their data burden and need to reduce some of their work paper volume right now. I think that, one of the problems we have right now is that we're going to have children coming to the system who have never been picked up to have disability. Last time they come into school, teachers say, oh, he's not doing so well, send for assessment. Now all that is gone. So I offered to MOE and to MOF that I will spearhead with pediatricians and universities to give them services for free, private and government and universities, so that we can do assessments. And of course, we need some funding. But a lot of funding actually nowadays can be killed with Google Meet and Zoom and all that to meet people who are online and who we can't travel with. Okay. So that's the first one. You need a rapid assessment tool. The second one is you need to go and reach out to the dropouts. You need to maintain attendance, dropout and those lost in a transition. And we can use MOE register. We can use the Jabatan Pendaftaran Negara to understand children who fail to enter school. And we need to have home visits. So again, summary slide and the detailed slides. We need an outreach program. Don't forget, as I said, from UNICEF data, 1 in 5 inner city children don't want to come back to school, especially guys. The dropout from guys is always higher than for girls, by the way. And girls are more interested in school than guys. We know that. The hardest children to identify, the ones lost in transition. That means moving from primary to secondary, and the one moving from preschool to primary, because they never registered. So we don't know they exist even. Okay. And of course, teachers cannot do all the home visits. They must be supported by civil society and social workers. Some children, I think we'll have to motivate them. And I'll talk about parent motivation a bit later, another topic, financial motivation. Okay. And some older students, I'm a realist, and some older students, we just say, okay, yeah, this is it. They're in Form 3, they've given up. Let's look for vocational training programs for them. Get them into a skilled occupation instead of them just becoming a manual labor. So we need to push vocational training for those from Form 3 onwards extensively in our country right now, because I suspect 20% of kids will just go into that right now. So to identify those who have failed in transition, MOE would have the data. We can use that. But we need, as I said, Jabatan Pendaftaran Negara to track all the children who are of that age or should enter Standard 1 in the last 2 years, including this year. Last 2 years, 2021 and 2022. Implement a parallel mechanism for children in international private homeschool religious schools, because must remember, you can't just think of MOE, you must think of 20-30% of children who don't come to MOE schools and who go to other schools. International, probably no problem, and private, no problem. The homeschool religious schools, we have to keep an eye on them. Okay. I think we need to coordinate with local authorities, some funding. And I think one of the key things we can do is reintroduce a program, Sarapan Pagi. Food is very important. If you are poor and parents are poor and you know your child is going to get one good meal in school every day, you probably will send them back to school. So we are pushing very hard to reintroduce the universal food program for children. In the past, it reached 600,000 children, but I think it should just be, rolled out for everybody. Most countries roll it out for everybody. Yes.
I never knew there was a Sarapan Pagi program.
We had it reached about 600,000 children, but they're very selective who can come in. I think it's got to be much larger than that. If you're on target, you target the bottom 40% at least,
Now that you mention it, I was studying in the US when I was 9 years old for a year, because my dad went to Stanford University for his master's. Yep. And we had free lunch every day.
Yes, correct. Many countries do this for everybody, so they don't stigmatize between the poor and the non-poor. Yes. That's the reason they do it for everybody. Okay.
I think it should be for everybody. You're right.
Yeah. The third one is you got to identify vulnerable children. These are people whose parents can't bring their children back because of financial reasons, and we need to show them. This is a teacher sent to me. So phenomenal teachers. They go all the way to the interior village in Sarawak, and they bring worksheets for their children because they got no electronics. And then they come back and say, mark the worksheets that you have done and see that you've done your homework and stuff like that. I think this kind of teachers are the ones, who hold up our country actually right now. So what to do for vulnerable children? They need money. Let's skip all this, I think. Don't forget, we're also talking here about refugees and stateless and so on. So I think for all families who are vulnerable, we've suggested to Ministry of Finance, give them 2 years financial support tied to school return. So we tell the parents, okay, we're going to give you X amount of money every month if you bring your child back to school. And I think the poor will do this. This is where our subsidies should go to, I think, in our country. We need to fund, as I said, after school care, both rural and urban, so that parents who are working and their working is so important to them because they're poor. This is another way to bring them back to school. Okay, we need to partner with community leaders so that we bring back Orang Asli and Tenan children and those areas. I must tell you, the normal Orang Asli dropout rate is already 50% by secondary school. So by mid-secondary school, 50% of Orang Asli students already drop out. So their dropout right now is going to be much bigger, and that's again disadvantageous for them. Okay, and I think any child at this point without documentation, we should just allow them to go to school. We have too much of this kind of nonsense of children cannot come to school because they're stateless or so on. And for detention centers, I think we should allow civil society to come in and offer education for these children. These are the most marginalized of the lot. The fourth one is something that we need to do to ensure catch up, which is to stagger their education terms. And this we should do by, formulating a 2-year staggered program, encourage teachers to focus on the key subjects, and we need to mobilize extra teachers. All right. So let me skip this. I think I want to say that the UNICEF core capacity documents, which I've linked inside the references, is a very powerful document, evidence-based, mind you, all taken from evidence on the key things we should teach children. You'd be surprised what they want to teach children: inquiring, listening, observing, reflecting, not swallowing information and vomiting for exams. Huh?
True.
I recommend that you look at this as a parent or as an educator. It's a very powerful, large document, very well written, based on evidence. And this is the kind of things we are talking about here. I think that
embodying means,
sorry, say that again.
Embodying. What is
embodying? I think understanding who you are, embodying your place.
Self.
Yep. So I think staggered catch-up, I'm skipping slides, so don't worry about that. The document is there for you. We need to staggered catch-up and needs to be reviewed every 6 to 12 months. And schools should be offered a flexible approach for this. And we've written up a staggered program. For example, if you're in primary 4, you do 1 primary 2, then you do 2 primary 3, then only in primary 5, you start primary 4 back 2 sessions, then you go back to primary 5, then primary 6, then you catch back. So you can see this a 3-year staggered program, not even a 2-year staggered program that we will need.
I see.
Yeah. You need this to build back the old blocks and push them forward. Some children have lost ground. They haven't had school for such a long time. They've lost a lot of ground. Okay. And we need more teachers. I'll talk a bit about how to get these teachers, but we need extra teachers to support, because again, I want to say we now have 2 classes in the same class. The ones who were okay and the ones who are not okay. The ones who kept going with education and the ones who cannot go with education. Huh? All right. I think one other option that we're offering is that children who want to stay an extra 1 to 2 years in school, stay. Just extend the period. Don't worry about it. And if you say, okay, I want to stay in Standard 4 another 1 year, just do it. The evidence internationally is very good. If you stay 1 extra year in school, your economic output long-term is phenomenal. The country's economic output also is very good. Huh?
But the parents are always so pressured to push the kids forward.
But we can just do this as a policy, and then the pressure is gone. There's also low enrollment schools. About 30-35% of our schools are low enrollment schools. They're usually the fringe of the city. And we could redirect some children to low enrollment schools. The classrooms are very small. Imagine 12 children in Standard 1, and that's the kind of class you want to go to. And in case the teacher is struggling with the children, then you teach science, maths, BM, English, literacy, life skills. Art and physical education we keep, but history and geography we probably can drop. Not that they're not important subjects, but when you have a crisis like this, you teach the subjects that are most important to children.
I see. So you actually change the curriculum in that sense.
Yes, correct. So that you get the key skills that you need for your children.
Okay. Oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah. The 5th one, there must be a mechanism to monitor the progress of each student. There's something called an individual education plan that we can use to track children. In the past, the individual education plan is only for children with disabilities. It's there. And the whole system is there. But we can put an IEP, but it must involve the child and parents, the older child and the parents in doing it, must review with the parents. Okay, let's skip that. I'll come back again. Sorry, I couldn't skip that. Okay, all right. So MOE can institute this for all children. We have people who can train you how to fill an IEP because we've been doing it for a long time, especially ed teachers and Regina's Korean and others. And we have a link online. It's actually an online system already, so it's not difficult for parents to go and see their children's IEP and monitor it there. So the whole system is there. We're suggesting that we should have IEP for every child. In fact, this is a very good system. Every child should have an individual education plan. So this one way we can track any child who is struggling there. The sixth one is you need to pursue special English Standard 1 entry. I'm very fussy about this Standard 1 and Standard 2 entry because these are children who did not receive preschool. Can you imagine 40% of our children did not receive preschool, come without reading and writing abilities? Imagine if you enter Standard 1 and aren't able to read and write. Now everybody enters Standard 1 actually normally has read and write, huh? Okay, and we need, as I said, extra teachers there. So as I said, the 40%. And don't forget that in the past, children with disability would have received early intervention. They got early intervention by as young as we found them, maybe by 2, 3, by 4 definitely. Then they went on, received 2 or 3 years or 4 years of early intervention. By the time they came to school, they were school ready. Now the children did not go to EIPs because of all this. So they come to school with their autism, ADHD, dyslexia, untrained. And that's another crisis for the teacher. So we should have 1 extra teacher in all primary 1 and primary 2 classes. That means there are 2 teachers now, not an assistant, a real teacher. How to get these people
in a class?
Yes, of course. Most industrialized countries, by the way, Betty, have a classroom size of 20 with 2 teachers. That's the ideal. 20, 25 children in a class with 2 teachers. That is the ideal education system that many people have developed. And that's what I want to recommend to you as well. Long term, one of my goals for all of us is that we redesign our education system to drop our classroom size to 2025 and have 2 teachers as well. Teaching is the single most important profession in the country, more important even than politicians or doctors.
True.
Where we're going to, and that's what Finland, Sweden, Denmark, all the bright countries have invested in for decades. And that's why their children are doing so well. Okay. So I think
you want to reduce the number of students per class. You want
to have more classes, you need more schools, of course.
Not even an assistant teacher.
No, we need a full teacher.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, but meanwhile, for the short term, Betty, I think we can ask retired teachers, unemployed university graduates, upper school leavers, reassign some civil servants who are not doing any work or doing less work and bring them in, because for Standard 1, Standard 2, the skill sets that you and I, even you and I can help Standard 1, Standard 2 and teach, because we've got the skill sets required for that. Huh?
No, I can teach calculus, okay?
Okay. But we want to teach here language skills and simple maths and stuff like that, you know. So I think short term, we need to do this to bring this in. And this is where the big money is. This is where MOF should spend their money. Okay. Number 7. I put it 7, but it's not a minimum. None of these are, you know, sort of bigger or smaller. It's COVID safety. If you don't ensure COVID safety, you know, it's a problem. So it's vaccination, HEPA filters, quality masks. And I want to ask all of you a question right now. Please scan the Slido QR code and answer. Regarding the COVID pandemic, your opinion right now is over and finished, done and dusted. Some lingering aspects remain. It's still with us for a few cycles more, maybe another year or so. It remains a threat for the foreseeable future, 5 to 10 years. Okay, it's very easy. Everybody just scan this using your camera. Yeah, it's very simple. Yep. That number one. First of all, is very good. Thank you very much for getting it started all the time. Yeah. Thank you. There are 7 people responded. I'd like to see a bit more this time if we can. Because this is an interactive session and we like your opinion on it. Well, at least some people doesn't think that it's over and finished. Yeah. Okay. If we can get more people to scan. Any more? We'll scan this QR code and just give us a response. Very simple. Just take your camera, use it to scan, okay, and then give us your feedback. Okay, next week, remember next week we are doing COVID, right? Not next week. Our topic is... Yes, next week we are doing COVID. Yes, what Amma thinks that COVID will bring us in a long run.
I'm very interested to know.
Sorry, Betty, I'm just seeing some people send me a message I missed because I
Oh,
turned
don't
off
worry.
my notifications that they did not receive a link to today's session.
Oh, yeah.
Although they registered.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
because you see, I only can send the email
Yeah.
like a day before. I cannot send the email today because it was too rush for me.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Never
So,
mind. Let's get on, huh? So I
there are more and more
think we
people.
can see the majority of you are right. It
Mhm.
remain a threat for the foreseeable future. I do not see any end to COVID right now in my personal reading of all the data and what's happening out there, unless we can develop some sort of really good nasal vaccine to block infection. Okay, but some of you think a few more cycles, no friends, is going to be for foreseeable future. And next week, as Betty said, I will talk about where COVID is heading, and I will talk about the major threat of COVID. In a moment, I ask another QA question about that, QR question about that. Okay, so it's not over and it's not lingering anymore. Huh? So here's the second question: what is the major threat of COVID to children?
I think, no, this is a difficult thing.
So is it multisystem inflammatory syndrome in children? Is it long COVID, the disability risk, no threat, small risk of death?
I'm most worried with long COVID.
Yep. So a couple of people have responded, and of
And I
course,
think I'm more comfortable with responding with this Slido now. I can
Yes.
see the number of people who are
gone up a
participating.
bit, yes.
gone a bit.
But Betty, you're perfectly right. The major threat is long COVID. Of course, multisystem inflammatory disease is a small issue for some children, not that many. If you've been vaccinated, of course, it's reduced. But long COVID is the main risk. So I plan to talk next week with Betty about long COVID disability risk for adults and children, and talk about the current data. If you don't read enough, then this is a crisis, because this is our major threat.
Somebody who said no threat.
No,
Okay.
it's a problem. But we're seeing children who lose speech abilities. We're seeing children who can't, Betty has seen a child can't go back to school and stuff like that. So we'll talk about this next
Yeah,
week.
I
All
will
right.
tell you
Yeah.
more about him next week.
Yeah. So I'm worried about this because, we want to promote vaccination, but you look at our vaccination right now, less than 50% of our 5 to 11-year-olds are vaccinated, which is a worry. And we have not started vaccinating the 0 to 5, which is of concern to me because all the children are at risk of long COVID. Of course, vaccination doesn't remove long COVID completely, but it definitely offers one layer of protection. All right. So I think that to bring back, to make classrooms safe, these are the three things that I think we will need. The minimum: vaccinate all children, and we should share with parents long COVID risk from international database because we're not keeping our own. Then the second thing is to wear better quality masks. Don't wear a surgical mask, wear FFP2, a KF94 mask. And there are children's sizes now available, reliable ones, please. 40% of the masks out there are not reliable. So you got to buy from a reliable supplier. And thirdly, have a HEPA-based portable air cleaner in every room with a reliable CO2 monitor. I'll talk a bit more about this next week when I share the resources that I use. I have more than this. I also have a far UVC device that I use when I go and give an in-person talk. But we need this kind of things in every class. And some schools have done this, and locally and internationally. And I'll give you some idea of who you can reach out to.
Okay, Amma.
Yes.
Back to this problem. Okay. Do you think that it will instill fear in kids in the long run too?
No, I think that right now kids still have fear. I still interact with lots of parents and children online, and have sessions with them, and they're still afraid about COVID safety. COVID fear is bigger to them. These are things that actually will instill some degree of security in children.
I see.
It's the other way around. Yeah.
You think that this will actually
offer some comfort? Yes.
Offer some. Okay.
And can I tell you that masks don't damage anybody? Okay, there's too much false information that some mask somehow will damage you. It does not, but COVID will definitely. Okay. I talked about the fact that we need, number 8, to move down to the preschool services. And there are two groups we need to move down to. We need to move down to the preschool, TASCA kindergarten group, and we need to move down, Tadika group, move down also to the disability groups down there. And I wanted to recognize that a lot of the early intervention centers shut down. Why they shut down? Because they're running on a very, very fringe budget. You know, people take a lower wage to come and work with disabled children. They become very highly skilled, but they don't have that much. So when parents don't come for 2 years, these services die, actually. Some have lost their staff, some have closed down completely. And as I told you, 25% of preschool kindergartens have shut down. So we've suggested to government to cover half the operating costs for EIPs for the next 2 years. I'm suggesting to you, if you got good corporate sponsors, go and consider sponsoring your local EIP and give them support for the next 2 years to get them back up and running. Long term, I suggest that the government actually fund this on a regular basis, and this is something I will approach the new government to do. Similarly, we need to identify kindergartens that need the support and ask government to financially support them, especially in remote areas where kindergartens are a lot more difficult to access because the numbers are small. Number 9 is something quite unusual, something I didn't expect myself to write, but we did, which is to use some digital means to reinforce education. You know, we need to do this, and I think there's one very simple way to do this, and this is the way to be suggesting. I'm going to skip the other slides. We need to ask all major companies, Celcom and DG and Maxis and all the others. They've made a lot of money out of all of us. Now is the time to return some of that profits back to the poorest students and have a digital device in every child's hand who is in education. I'm not a fan of digital devices for children, but
Yes.
children need to learn. And we know that digital devices change the outcome of learning. And teachers will communicate a lot more with them. And here I'm talking a lot about a Chromebook. I'm not talking about a handphone. I'm talking about a Chromebook, which is very, very cheap. A Chromebook is cheaper than a laptop, cheaper than a handphone or a tablet, and works like just as well as a laptop. And it's ready. The moment you take out the box, you just open it, put in your email, and you're done. Okay.
Sorry, I never heard of a Chromebook before. Is it like a Kindle?
No, a Chromebook is just looks like a laptop, except it runs on Chrome. It doesn't run on Windows or anything else. It runs on Chrome OS.
Oh, I see.
Google Chrome OS. Okay.
Okay.
I've been using it for ages. Betty, this is my preferred device. Because what do you want with a device? You want to be able to read, correct? You want to be able to watch some videos, maybe play some games. Okay, there's 3 things. And of course, communicate with individuals.
So it is like a laptop.
Identical with a keyboard and everything.
It's not a tablet.
Nope.
Oh, I
No.
see.
It can be detachable. I have one Chromebook which is detachable, so I can use like a tablet if I want to. And some Chromebooks can fold over, so it becomes tablet on one side. And then when you open it, it becomes a thing. How much do they cost? Well, you know, most of them are under 1,000. You can buy 2,000-3,000 ringgit ones if you like, but most of them under 1,000. And if you buy in bulk from a good supplier, you know, Acer or
So this
one of the others,
Chromebook is a Google device.
it's a Google-based device. It's Google OS. Software updates are very frequent. I think you might be getting about 8 software updates in a year. Anyway, you know, it will keep on going for a couple of years easily.
Okay, this webinar is not sponsored by anything.
No,
okay?
no, not at all.
We are
Yes.
just talking about our own.
Yeah, children. So I think it's a device to put into children. And if you don't have these companies doing it, maybe some of us could take our pre-loved devices,
Yes.
our old devices, you know, wipe them clean and then give them to children who need them. If you don't know how to do it, there are NGOs who can help you do that as well. DG has got a program, by the way, you know, who are using pre-loved devices and giving away to the poor. Okay. Number 10, we must be aware of the mental health situation of our children and address it, you know, recognize it. And we need to train people to recognize this. And I want to ask you here, pre-pandemic, now this is pre-pandemic question, how many of our adolescents aged 10 to 17 had mental health issues before the COVID epidemic? And we had 4 million children in that group in the pre-pandemic period. What number you think of them, or percentage of them, do you think had mental health problems? Just have a go at this.
I think it's whatever figure that we had, we write down, it is higher than we think. And now it's even worse.
Yeah, I decided to do this pre-COVID because we don't have a figure post-COVID.
Yes.
But the figure post-COVID must be frightening, you know what I mean? But the
Yes.
pre-COVID figure. Thank you to 6 people who responded. Any more? Want to give it a shot? Thank you very much.
Because right, it is like so acceptable for kids these days to
Yeah.
actually come out. I mean, like, okay, I really need the therapist. I want to see a therapist.
Yeah. By the way, inside the list of resources for you, I've given you one particular file that I worked on, which collates all the free services for children who need counseling, okay, throughout the country. So please use that. So the correct answer, those guys who answered 400,000, and here's the answer from the National Health Mobility Survey in 2019. We had about 400,000 children who have mental health problems. How they do this? They did household surveys, representative random samples, I think about 30,000 households throughout the country. So it's a very, very good figure. Here's the early NMH survey from 2017, which tells you 1 in 5 children is depressed, 1 in 2 anxious, 2 in 5 anxious, 1 in 10 stressed out. And so there are lots of other data from the NMH survey about children struggling with social problems. And some parents tell me, no, Amma, this won't happen to my child. But when I interview their children online, when I interview their children online with Slido, their children tell us that they are a mess. So parents don't know their children's situation. So here I want to ask you right now, regarding your child, your children, or the children in your care, you know, your mental situation of the children in their care right now. I have no concerns, some minor concerns, significant concerns, unsure. Thank you for answering unsure. Okay, all right. Some parents are unsure. I have no concerns, minor concerns, significant concerns. Okay. I've done this a couple of times with different children's and parents groups, asking the parents and the children to answer separately. And can I tell you that, you know, your answers are mirroring their answers, okay? About half of them have got significant concerns right now with children's mental health. And we're not talking about people who are in poverty or the B40. We're talking about all of us together. And there is a sizable proportion who have no concern. So I think we must be concerned about children's mental health right now. COVID has made it very, very much worse. You know, I think it's probably looking at 1 to 2 million children in the country right now with some mental health crisis, where we should be talking about depression, anxiety, and stuff like that.
I think if you are a parent with no concern about and you are one of those parents who actually say, it will never happen to my child.
Or Betty, they are one of those parents who are very, very engaged. They sit down and they play and they read and write with their children. And it's possible, okay?
I'm very engaged with my kids. And at the end, I still had a lot of things I didn't know.
Yep.
And some of it was also my own fault.
Yep.
Okay. So yes, it's.
Yeah, Betty, I'm going to go on so you can take their Q&A.
Yes.
So I think we need to guide teachers how to do this and have referral avenues. We need a quick screening tool. And I suggested that we work with professional associations, mental health professionals, MMA, to do this. And there's something called a Super Skills for Life program, which is available in Malay. It's written from UK. How to enable and strengthen children. And it's there in the document, in the links. Go and look under the mental health section. Don't forget, teachers also need mental health support. We must offer them additional support. And I'm going to skip this session, not because it's not important, but because I think for time. So additional staff, reduce administrative tasks, and encourage teachers to express their burnout so that we give them support, don't victimize. Finally, please don't forget children who are most at risk, children who are in detention centers and others who need our things stateless. So we must push our zero reject policy that all children can go to school, which is part of the rights of children. And we must cultivate an environment that, you know, emphasizes supporting the individual child. I want to say that in our document, we were asked to write about the low-hanging fruit, things we can do right now for our children, but we put one last section in, which is for long-term. And this is for long-term. For long-term, all children should be taught by universal design for learning. What is universal design for learning? Is the recognition that children learn differently, that different ways of learning, and every child is different. And so we teach children how they learn, not how we want to teach. That's very important. Teach children how they learn, not how to teach. And this is the very powerful model from Finland, which many countries in the world have adopted and become very successful with this. And the aim here is to bring everybody together, whether you're disabled or able, in the same classroom. You learn through flexible approaches. You keep learning. We don't worry about a standardized exam. We worry about you benchmarking against yourself and that you are showing progress. And so we do individual assessments. The data is phenomenal. I put in one document inside the resources from her here. Her here shows from all the data in the world that the academic output of all children improves when you do this. When you do universal design for learning and you mix children with disability with children without disability, everybody improves social and academic outputs. Emotional output improves as well.
Okay, that can only be done. Yes, then
it can be done, but you got to do things like I suggested. Two teachers, bring the classroom size down.
Yes.
Change. I have got a whole talk on this, Betty, about how to make inclusion happen for the disabled and so on.
Then the right kids will actually teach the. It's very
Agreed.
Yeah.
That was happening in my class also. The brighter kids got the ones who were struggling, and that was actually a great. Actually, you learn a lot when you teach somebody else.
Yes,
you
that's
learn
right.
a phenomenal kind of skills,
Yes.
I want to ask here, finally, as we end, what is your long-term hope for your children? I hope many people will answer this. What's your long-term hope for your child or children? Get a good career, become famous, become wealthy, get married, have children, become a good person, remain healthy, or something else?
Okay.
Betty, you must answer this as well.
Yes, I'll be answering. Okay. Okay, I've answered. So remain healthy. That's your hope for your child to remain healthy.
Hey, Betty, don't bias people's responses, okay?
Please.
No, I think that's a very common response I've had from parents when I teach in the community and ask them. Many of them say they want their child to be healthy. Health is actually on the top one priority of parents. Education number 2, actually. Career number 3. Okay. So I think many of you, of course, have answered the one that we want to. And I want to say that I put this slide up here at the end to focus on that education is not a race. But here's something I took off social media. Here's a child who scored number 1, very unhappy. Here's a number 3, he was delighted, He is delighted he got something, it doesn't matter, but I got something. And so this child is a lot more wholesome than this one, who's upset that he's upset this guy is happy. Even though he got number 1. So society has become very ill with this need to compete. We don't need to compete and compare. All right. Education, for those who are educationists in the audience and those who do not know, it comes from 2 Latin words, educer, to bring out the treasure within. As this beautiful girl that I photographed, I like her very much, became a friend, is to bring out what is within us, not to stuff it with stuff, not to photocopy people to be like other people, not to vomit for exams, but for people to be cultivated, to learn how to think, to grow. I think education is the growth of the person rather than the growth of knowledge per se. Huh? Yes. So this is a summary of what we did, but let's skip the summary and skip all this. I bet if I got time, we'll come back to this. But here's the Slido Q&A, and let's take Q&A right now from people.
Okay, you can do the Slido Q&A, but we have a few questions already in this chat group.
Okay.
And Jen Wong asked,
okay,
has MOE actually agreed to all these suggestions that you have put forth?
Jen, MOE says that they have no problems. The children are all right and doing okay. So we're having difficulty convincing them. Huh? That's why with this new government, we'll have another trust again at this. But we've tried a couple of times already doing this. Actually, I reached out to MOE extensively to get them to write this document with us and to take all the credit for the document. We don't need any credit, or we're not interested in that. So right now, no, we haven't got a buy-in yet at present.
Okay.
But having said that, Sarawak State buy-in, individual schools have buy-in, individual groups have buy-in. That's what we can suggest. We don't have to wait for a national buy-in. We can do it on our local PTA can work with their school to get some of this in place.
Okay. Another question Jenny asked is, just now the surgical mask or the medical mask, is it better for? Okay, so maybe you have actually
Yeah. If you look at the data, the surgical mask has a considerable leak, 30-40% leak. So that's not a very good mask. I mean, if nothing else, that's a mask to use, but not a cloth mask, But the data, even for a good cloth mask, is fairly comparable to a surgical mask. So neither of those are effective. So it's a FFP2, which means a KF94. I think a KF95 is very hard to wear in school for the whole day. A KF94 you can. The leak there will be about 10% if you put your nasal bridge on properly. Huh? So I think that's the kind of mask we should advocate for. Yeah. If you buy in bulk, they're not that expensive, mind you. I buy mine in bulk. Yeah.
Can you go back a few slides on the happiness is a choice? I think in children, happiness is a right. Yes.
Betty, you like that, but you know,
Pursuit of happiness is actually in this constitution. It's a right for everyone. And okay,
I don't think we can do that. You know, we want that for our children. John Lennon, when he was very young in early school, when children asked what do you want to be when you grow up, he put, I want to be happy. And the teacher said that's not the right thing to say. You should want to say you'll be a doctor, a lawyer, whatever. But he got it right, John Lennon. But happiness is something we have to choose, you see, in a sense that we can want happiness for our children, but in the end, we have to cultivate the environment where children choose this. You know, it's not going to happen.
That there are parents who, would not be saying that they want the child to be a good person as a first choice. I'm so disappointed.
No, don't be, Betty. That's realistic. There's one question here. What can I do personally for children to ensure they're caught up with both mental health and their studies? Now, to the person who asked this question, I've got one more file that I put in the resources. That's why I put so many resources there. It's on how to build a resilient family. Okay, I wrote something. I gave quite a lot of talks on that as well, and throughout the pandemic. So I've written there how to change your family structure, your life, especially yourself. If parents don't change, we can't change our children. That's the key. So parents should change. So parents should work on their mental health. Remember, it's not just up here, it's also down here in your spirit that you need to change. So I think the first thing is for us as parents to become better, to become healthy, and then this will spill over into our children. We can do it, of course, in tandem with our children. And I think children need a lot of time away from screens. We also need time away from screens. We need time with nature. There's a lot of good data right now, got a lot of good studies showing that if you watch birds, you have better mental health. That's why I watch birds a lot. But the data also suggests that if you just go to the forest, just go to the garden, you just walk around, you know, you get better mental health. So I often talk about nature. It's a very powerful mental health tool. And that's the thing, the one simple tool I would suggest, a lot more tools I've suggested inside the document, but one simple tool is take your children out once a week, or if you can do every evening, go for a walk once a week, maybe go to the jungle or a riverside and just lepak lah, bring some sandwiches, chit chat, no screens. Turn off your data plan. Turn off your data plan. Don't take any pictures.
Not chicks, watch birds, not chicks.
Yeah, birds, yes, correct.
But I think I like to add that I think having conversation instead of just making statements or ordering your kids, okay, having conversations with your kids actually bring out their thoughts, their ideas, and allow them a standing in a position in the family. And that's, I think, is very important.
Yeah. I think that's important. And in the document, I talk about how we should listen to children.
Yes.
And listen is what I say, because we need to listen to things they don't say. We need to listen to their hearts. We listen to their body language as well. And so parents quite often instruct children rather than listen. Have you done your homework? Okay, go and have your shower, then have a dinner. Rather than say, you know, let's lepak for a while. I like to rescue this word lepak back. You know, just hang out with your child and just listen. And this won't happen suddenly, you know, you have to do it many times before a child listens to you. There's another question here, which is something that we are hearing a lot from now. Kids being sick weekly, flu, fever, flu, cough, and their attendance are poor. There are a couple of things happening here, 3 things that are happening here, okay? First is COVID diagnosis by RTK now is poor. We're getting increasing reports from people that you do 2-3 RTK negative, do 1 PCR positive. So I wouldn't trust the RTK so much anymore. So some of the children that you're seeing are getting COVID, and COVID is going to come round and round. This variant, next variant, next variant, next variant doesn't seem to offer very much immunity to us. And many of these kids probably are not vaccinated. The second thing that's happening is that we are now getting a re-emergence of some of those viral agents that were, you know, sort of kept under, minimized because of all our lockdowns and our mask usage. So right now, you know, RSV and influenza is also spreading, and that's what we're facing here. But a third one is what many people think. Many of the clinicians and scientists I follow internationally say that COVID damages our immune system. And we find that people get worse infections to previous bugs that they didn't do so badly with. That means last time you had influenza wasn't so bad. Now the influenza is worse because COVID has sort of exhausted
is
your
it?
immune system as well. Yeah, go and read about this, Betty. There's a
Oh,
lot
I
of
didn't know that.
yeah.
I don't have kids anymore, you see. So that's
Yeah,
the
yeah, but it's not just kids, it's working for adults as well, which is why people seem to get a worse infection, a worse outcome for their disease right now, because COVID seems to have damaged. So it doesn't happen to everybody, but it happens to some. So I think these are 3 reasons why we're doing this. What I would suggest to you is that these children shouldn't come to school, sadly, which means we need some digital support for them, schooling. Secondly, consider whether you could get together all the parents in the class, talk to them and say, hey, let's all wear masks. Thirdly, get a HEPA filter and get two HEPA filters. You can build a Corsi cube, Corsi cube for maybe about 300 ringgit. Malaysian engineers who have done it for less than 300 ringgit, and put 2 in the room, and that will dramatically remove viral particles from the room. You know, and thirdly, encourage everybody to get their COVID vaccination if they haven't done it already.
Do you
Some
think
suggestions.
that the COVID vaccine should be given at birth?
No, I don't think we give it to babies at birth, Betty. But I think we
No,
should.
we don't. But do you think that we should?
No, I don't have the data to support that at all. So I will not recommend it at all. But
Okay.
you see the US data, they've gone down to the under 5s and done fairly well with the under 5s as well.
Yeah, but under 5 is like from
I know 0 to 5, but I'm talking more like 1 to 5, rather than 0 to 5.
It's still
I'll be very, very concerned in giving any vaccine to children under 0 to 1 without very, very rigorous testing, I think.
but it doesn't seem to go away. Anyway,
No.
that's the topic that we're going to talk about
next week.
Yeah, that's right. So
I'm going to
any
more questions? Yes, can either put them here or put them in the chat. Either one is fine.
Yeah, let me see the chat. So okay, Jan Wong's following the answer.
Yeah.
Jan Wong asked, is MOE agreeable for students to repeat the year in school if we feel okay? Oh, that's also one thing that first we were worried that parents want to push the kids up.
Yep.
Okay, now the parents want to keep the kids. Well,
yeah, I to have that happen, you will need to get a letter. Parents can make a request, but probably a doctor's letter might help. The problem with this, Jen, right now is that what will happen is they will still eject the kid after they reach a certain age. That means they won't finish their schooling. There's a certain limit number of years you can be in school. If you are disabled, then you got extra 1 to 2 years in school. But if you're not disabled, then they will. So let's say you drop from you want to stay an extra Form 3, and then after that only move forward. They'll be very resistant to this, and they will still knock you out earlier. You won't finish your schooling. But if you're disabled, then you got extra 1 to 2 years. 2 years, I think, if I'm not mistaken, in school. But you will need a disability registration for that to happen. Okay. So Jen, this has to become a systemic thing. We have to change the system to allow this to happen. They argue that this older person, maybe in the critical exam years at Form 3, now has an advantage over the person who was, who's younger. I don't think that way at all. I think any child who needs to stay longer lah,
Ahmad, do you mind stop sharing your screen?
Sure, no problem.
Share the QR code, yeah?
Yep.
I want to ask you, okay, now that you said that it is the number of preschool, okay, has dropped, right? Do you think we should start preschool in our schooling system? You know what I mean? Going down to 5 years old instead of 7 years old.
Going down to 5 years instead of 7. I think that we should encourage MOE to do that.
Yeah, isn't it?
We encourage MOE to go down to school, the preschool area, and take. MOE has done some of that, but not enough. But I think that MOE doesn't have the resources to do it. The way is to empower the preschool system. Sort of adopt them into the MOE system and make them sort of your partner and give them a bit of funding and resources. I think that's what we should do. But every child, I think, needs to go to a preschool. Otherwise, they're not school ready.
I hope we we see some progress and changes in our MOE, because
Yeah.
I don't think we have done much for the last 20
Yeah,
to
I think Masli has been speaking, our previous education minister, Masli, has been speaking a lot about that, huh?
yes,
And
but
Betty, they say they can't see the code. I also can't see the code, yeah.
okay. No, the code, you can't see the code. The
The
QR
code is not projecting.
It is. Oh, I stop share first and I try again.
Yep.
Okay, this is the code. Okay, this is the QR code. Can you see?
Yes, we can see it now.
Okay, funny. Okay, I also want to. So this QR code are for doctors, it's for doctors, yeah, not for nurses. For nurses, go to Facebook page and then the registration form is there. I also don't know how to use now. Okay, done. Okay, so now I'm going to stop share. And
Betty, before we go off,
yes.
I'd like to come back to something I said. So my thing won't go up.
So I stop share, yeah? I have stopped share it, yes.
Yeah, you can stop share. Let me just, I'm having difficulty with this. Okay. All right. Now I've got this website that may be of interest to you guys. This is another QR code. Apologize for so many QR codes today. This is a OKU Rights Matter website. If you don't have the QR code also, you just type OKU Rights Matter. You'll come to our website. We've got lots of documents and resources there. We're trying to develop a one-stop website where you can get all your resources you need for people with disability, children and adults. It's a lot of resources. Just go to the resources link inside the website, you'll find it. We also have got this campaign that we're running, which is to make the right real in Malaysia. And I'd like you to consider joining our campaign. When you go to the campaign site, you'll have some templates available for you. You can just tembak your picture there and put it on Facebook or on Twitter or whatever you like. At the same time, you know, if you don't want to put your picture, also you can put something else and do this. I think we need to advocate for inclusion of persons with disability in society, and this will work towards what I'm thinking long term, which is to advocate for inclusion of all areas. I'm going to stop that right now. Betty, back to you.
Okay. So I think we have done very well. We're past 1 hour, and as usual, the fact that you said that we can actually reduce some of the topics that and not teach, let's say, geography or history, that's a great idea.
Yeah, I think that's a short-term gain.
Yes,
Short-term goal. Long-term, of course, I would love our children to learn history and
Yes.
geography and other things.
I
but
think let's say they miss the first 3 years,
Yep.
1 to standard 3, just concentrate on language, maths, and science.
Agreed.
Yeah, always the language, the first few. Once your children can master a language, right?
Yep.
They can learn anything by themselves.
Agreed.
Yeah, it is very easy for children to learn things if you just guide them. Okay, I mean, not everybody can afford private schools, and
Yep.
it's unfortunate that I hope our school system will change and change for the better, that people will be proud that their children are going to government school, isn't it? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Agreed.
I'll see you next week, Amar.
Okay. All right.
Okay, see you guys. Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you so much.